Good evening, parents and carers of students with special educational needs and English as an additional language. It's my absolute pleasure to be able to invite you to our third Inclusion Information Evening this year. As you will already know from our previous inclusion information evenings, we always begin with our school's ethos, and Bexley Heath Academy is 100% an inclusive school. And at this point, I would like to also welcome our parents and carers of students who are transitioning from year 6 to year 7 next year, and for whom this is the first inclusion information evening. So a very, very, very warm welcome to you as well. So when we say that Bexley Heath Academy is an inclusive school, it is because we expect, hope and push all of our students to be unusually brave and try new things, even if it's difficult. Discover what's possible and be surprised by their own growth and development. Push the limits of their own knowledge, be it in reading, in terms of their integrity, in PE, or in their social skills, and to be big-hearted and do the right thing and stand up for what's right. And as we kind of almost conclude this year, I must say that some of our students with special educational needs have been at the top of the leaderboard in all of these 4 areas. And just because something might be a little bit harder for some of our staff and some of our learners who've got those, let's say, additional needs, does not mean that we haven't all witnessed superheroes and absolutely fantastic young people in the making. So in this evening, we would like to reiterate some of the things that we have been talking about all year to ensure that we remain on the same page with our community. We've also got a few kind of new things to share and a little bit of a new sharing. And we're also going to be thinking and sort of interacting with you with a planning with planning in mind. And at the very end, I'm going to talk a little bit about how we've already used feedback that you've given us in our planning and how we would like to open up for more feedback from you. So just again, to kind of a little bit of a reiteration and a little bit of something new, we've got Miss Chicolita, our Senko. It is my absolute pleasure to be introducing you to Mr. Morocco as EAL lead, although he is certainly not just a new teacher. He's been with us this year and he's been already doing absolutely fantastic things with students with EAL and running EAL Club, which has been a massive success. And Ms. Cookson Edwards, our SEND administrator, as always, at the end of that phone call or that email or that SEND inquiries form, to be the first port of contact for your inquiries. I'm now going to pass on to Ms. Chicolita, who is going to go through what from our community, so from our parents and carers, and next from our students, we have understood you have valued the most and has been kind of like very much at the center of our planning for next year. So over to Ms. Chicolita for the next part of the presentation.
Thank you, Miss Elliott Graves. It is a great pleasure to talk about some of the things that we as a school are valued for. And no one will be surprised that at the top of our list for this year were the ASD ADHD referral completely using evidence through home and school collaboration. We listened to the parents, we saw what's happening in the classroom, and those referrals were put in place for the students that absolutely needed them. Second on our list, it has an increasing support and interventions for students, especially in the area of social and emotional mental health. We listened to our students. We took feedback from our teachers, and especially from the parents. We went through many, many meetings in which parents expressed their worry about issues around anxiety, issues around accessing lessons because emotionally students were not where they were supposed to be. Lastly, it was completing education and health care needs assessments. And we went into providing evidence for these huge documents that were in a collaboration with home, listening to what's happening at home to justify an assessment, and obviously what is happening in school. So if teachers were worried about some of their students, so they need above and beyond the level of support that they get in the classroom, they came back to the SEN office and talked to us about this. We listened to those worried. We created a list of students that absolutely needed this assessment, and we are looking forward to finding out what the assessments are telling us we need to do. Then we are sharing with you some of the things that our students valued most this year. And I'm going to read some of them. There are many, many positive things that our students come and tell us. So one of this is a student that came and said, doing the assessment with Mr. Struger was really good, as it was easier than doing them in the classroom without an LSA. So the exceptional support that the LSAs provide for students. There is a bunch of messages referring to our Chill Club, so popular this year. I like how I get freedom during Chill Club. It makes me happy, one student told me. Another one said, I love Chill Club because I can communicate with my friends and have fun. This student comes with 3 of his friends during lunchtime to enjoy that club where they can be themselves, they can talk to one another. Another student told me, I love Chill Club because I can have freedom to socialize and relax. So well put, so articulate. There is a student that referred to the support the social, emotional, mental health support they get from our LSAs. This student told me, I work with Mr. Turner on emotional regulation and I do not get panic attacks. This is the mission. It is to make students comfortable, able to access lessons and be happy in school. Lastly, this is one of my favorite students. I do not have many favorites. They are all my favorite. This student said, I liked learning, having fun, and communicating with Mrs. Chicolita during our precision teaching sessions. This is a very difficult intervention. Despite this, my lovely student had fun and was able to communicate with me the things that he is worried about. I will pass you now to Miss Elliot Graves. Miss Elliot Graves, over to you for detailing how the support works in the academy.
Wonderful. Thank you, Miss. And before I go on to just explaining the graduated approach and how we offer support for students, one thing that really echoes from the feedback that we've been given from our students is that they valued most that interaction with our expert and trained staff members to help them feel confident and to help them feel heard. And I just wanted to say that whether this happens in Chill Club, that is in a way specifically designed to do that, or in Focus and Organize in the morning, that is aimed at ensuring students are organized and in the right mindset and frame of mind for the day, or whether indeed it's in Homework Club that whose main goal it is to help students complete their homework, that sort of mentoring and pastoral side of things would happen in every single club and every single intervention. And if your child isn't already attending at least one of the interventions that we discuss, then I really urge you to get in contact with us. Choose one that would be the most appropriate and see if your child could attend and benefit from that. So, talking a little bit more in general about how support is structured at Bexley Heath Academy. So same with all schools that follow the government guidelines and the SEND code of practice. We follow that sort of triangle pyramid graduated approach to offering support. At the bottom level, what every student with special educational needs, and by being in that inclusive environment, actually every single student in our lessons will be accessing inclusive, quality first teaching. In the later parts of this presentation, in the later slides, I will explain exactly how this works and how it is more a matter of including everyone in the fold and everyone in the same lesson rather than differentiating for particular needs and pigeonholing students into particular diagnoses and treating them as such. We do know that some students, even with that quality first teaching and that approach that is given and on offer to all in the classroom, do require some interventions to focus on particular skills. Ms. Chicolita is going to go through our current clubs and interventions in a little while and how they target specific skills and develop those. Some students will have had that quality first teaching, will have had some targeted interventions that promote them as independent learners and try and develop their independent skills in managing their needs. They will require a much more bespoke approach. And it's at these points where we start to consider, first and foremost, what is the student that we've got in front of us, who they are and what exactly do they need, what is their background and what does the family as a whole need to support that student's learning. And at that point, what can we already provide as part of our universal and targeted approach? And what is that added extra? And it's at that point that we start to be thinking about referrals to wider professionals, to our early intervention team meeting, to be securing diagnosis, to be securing the EHCPs that Ms. Chicolita was talking about. Unless we have had a robust experience of the universal and the targeted, we cannot progress to that top part of the pyramid for two reasons. The first and more important one is that we won't have enough evidence about what is actually going to work. So we will be going a little bit blindly and not really tailoring it to the student as needed. The second, maybe more practical and more cynical, if you like, reason is that we will have not provided enough evidence for the local authority to fully understand what resources they would need to allocate to this child's education that is additional to what the school already can provide. And so they won't know how to prioritize our students, and we can't have that. That is why, if you have already gone through the process or know of someone who has gone through the process, you understand that the education and healthcare needs assessment is quite lengthy, is quite detailed, involves a lot of thinking, a lot of planning, a lot of input. But by doing all of that, and as Ms. Chicolita said, very much in partnership with you, we've had a 100% success rate this year with the applications that we have put in. And we're proud of that because it's all geared towards our students, whether they stay with us or not. It is a document that is very informative and very useful and has the funding associated with it that really supports the students' learning. Okay, so I haven't produced a exhaustive list of every single thing that our teachers will do in their lessons to make sure that they are inclusive. But I have drawn out just a few of those things that if someone just walked through the door of a classroom would see the same lesson in some way be taught to all students. And for the most part, this is our aim. Our aim is to be inclusive rather than segregate, specialize, and highlight or pull out certain needs and treat them differently in an unnecessarily obvious way. And it is unnecessary. It isn't just because we do not hide special educational needs. We are very vocal about them. Myself, as a teacher with dyslexia, mention it in every other breath. In our previous inclusion evening, we had our senior leaders present about their own superpowers. So it's not a matter of hiding, but it is a matter of including, because actually quality first teaching that speaks to the needs of students with special educational needs and English as an additional language is actually a better learning environment for everyone, including and sometimes especially for high achievers. So, for example, all teachers will have a robust seating plan that is appropriate for all of their students, bearing in mind the information that the inclusion team has offered where students have sensory needs or whether they have focus and concentration needs. There's some occasions where a student will be placed at the front, which is the traditional way of ensuring that they can focus on the teacher because they are closer to the teacher. Other students, though, through conversations and feedback, have told us that actually what is most distracting for them and causes them most anxiety is having everyone behind and not knowing what they're doing and getting distracted and turning. So that student will be placed at the back. Equally, there may be some students that are a little bit in the middle because they don't need to quite be at the front, but they should be in the aisles near where the teacher can get to them. So all of that is considered. All teachers are trained specifically throughout the year, every year, in securing attention in multiple ways. And they know and have pre-planned those students that will require that one-to-one check-in to make sure that they've understood the instruction, can repeat it, and have got that step-by-step approach. Other students, we will have in their notes that they require their name to be said before an instruction is directly given so that they know it affects them directly and they need to pay attention and do that. So that is again embedded. It doesn't, those students are not taught as if in a completely separate environment, but that environment will have that main instruction and those one-to-one conversations and those check-ins seamlessly. We ask all teachers to provide visual support, especially with what we call dual coding. So everything that is said verbally, will have it in writing concretely and will also have a picture or a visual or a diagram to back it up. This is also the case with the majority of the timers, for example, so that students can actually see how long they've got left, or where a task needs a step-by-step approach, that will be on the slides that they can see on the big screen ahead or on the little screen right next to them. We know from research and from the majority of the staff in the inclusion department that students with dyslexia can absolutely should be avoiding copying. It is an absolute nightmare for them to do, and it's really, really, really inaccessible. However, copying is a huge waste of time for any student, because whilst they are copying, they could be doing anything else. They could be reading and rereading that same sentence that they are copying, developing their fluency if that's what they need to progress. They could be looking up unknown words in that. They could be thinking about answers. They could be having a discussion with the student next to them, developing oracy. So we've taken something that is an absolute sort of, Ms. Chicolita will probably be nodding or talking later on. It is the first golden rule when teaching students or learners with dyslexia, that you avoid copying, but actually everyone should avoid copying. And that's why we're using everything we've got, our technology and our resources, to ensure that no student is wasting time copying. Similar, there are students who require off-white backgrounds, because a white background with black writing on is completely inaccessible. The word starts swimming around and it's an absolute nightmare to read. However, a background that isn't white with black colors is easier on the eyes of every single student. And at the very least, having an off-white or a colored background does not take away from anyone's learning. So that isn't something that only a teacher with a student with dyslexia in their classroom will do. Everyone will be teaching in that way. And for students with concentration difficulties, whether they have a diagnosis or not, with reading difficulties, with comprehension difficulties, with being able to process verbal and written information, all of those students should, and it is very much our principle, that they should be able to enter any classroom and be at least 90%, bar some particular things included just from the onset. So this is what we mean when we say that our school is inclusive, and that's what we are promoting. I've talked about a couple of sort of needs here and just spoken about that. In this presentation, we're not for the most part going to dwell on particular diagnosis. We've done that in our previous inclusion evenings. But the only exception is to just highlight Mr. Morocco and what he's got in plan for English as additional language. The rest of the presentation is going to be much more geared towards experiences and how students and parents can expect to experience our school. Okay, so over to Mr. Morocco now, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Miss Elliott-Graves. So good afternoon. My name is Mr. Morocco, and I'm the EAL coordinator here at Bexley Heath Academy. So thank you for joining us this evening. So you've already heard about the steps that we're making to make the school more inclusive and a better learning experience for all our students. But as someone who has a passion for language and as an English teacher, I'm really excited just to share the steps that we're making in order to improve the learning experience for particularly our EAL students. What we're making sure is that we're not being reactive to the growth of EAL students, but we are being proactive and putting steps in place in advance to ensure that it's a more wholesome experience for those students. So firstly, what is EAL? So EAL is English as an additional language. So therefore, anyone that has learnt or is currently learning English, which will be an addition to an already established or exposed to language, is classified as an EAL student, okay? They are acquiring English as an additional language. Now, there are different levels to English, not just for EAL, but for all students. But with our EAL students, what we are doing here at Bexley Heath Academy is, first of all, we need to use the Cambridge official grading just to establish exactly what level of English each student has, okay? So we use the Cambridge banding. It goes from new users, which are those who are newly exposed to English, and they will be in the A1 level. Then to independent users, and then finally, proficient users who are extremely fluent in English. So how do we go about determining this? First of all, what we do is we conduct a shortened examination just with a variety of questions based around English, just to determine and establish exactly where that student is in their progress with English. So once we've established the proficiency of those students, we then put them into 3 bands just to support us in providing the best aids. So we have new to English, which are those, as I've said, who are newly exposed to English. Then we have some English. They are medium level learners that can work independently. And then, of course, we have the fluent. So once we've established those bands, then we can communicate and liaise with the other teachers just to ensure that we have put the best support in place to enable that student to access the learning and to really be a part of that learning environment. Okay, so what we do is we look at specialized and focused classes with a CELTA trained and specialist teacher that can really work with those students to ensure that they are getting specialized and focused direction and tuition in their learning. Secondly, we know the importance of, as we've heard about, dual coding, just providing everything with a visual stimulus for those students to better link and understand the work that they are learning. Okay, it's to aid the comprehension and to support them with the information. We are very big on inclusion here, and we really want to make sure that we have a culture and environment that supports every single student. So with that, we encourage and we remind the students of the advantages and the beauty, really, of multilingualism. So knowing more than one language and really the benefits that it gives to them. So in addition, we also have clubs to encourage and promote a positive environment and culture towards using the language, to express, to communicate the students with their English. So we have clubs where students can come, and it's really about making all language comprehensible and putting those students into situations, whether with their learning, also with role play and activities and things, where they get to use those newly learnt language in real life situations and environments. Because once they've done that and they can naturally use the language without too much thought, then their progression speeds up and is much enhanced. And finally, what we make sure we do here is we make use of the resources that are available. We make the students aware of the resources that are available. We have talk to type, translations. We use many programs such as Quizlet, just to transfer and transfer between the different languages if necessary. So the students are actually embedding the knowledge in a more secure and solid manner. Language, as we say, is used for communication, and it's important that all of our students are able to express themselves, and by giving them the language necessary, we ensure that they are able to do that. So thank you. I'm going to hand you back over now to Ms. Chicolita, and I wish you a nice evening. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Morocco. And as Mr. Morocco said, and Miss Elliot Graves presented to you all, at the center, at the core of what we do is the child. This is a child-centered approach. And with that in mind, I'm going to explain what do interventions in our school look like. Mr. Morocco mentioned clubs for EAL students. I'm going to mention the interventions that we have in place. And there is a very precise way of putting those interventions in place and understanding how interventions work. They should be time and target specific and must develop students' independence. We are not here to provide support for the sake of the support and for this support to be taken from year 7 until year 11. We want independent students able to access learning independently, to self-advocate, being that for ASD or their mental health needs. We have these interventions for a while to tell the student, we are here, we can provide you with the tools to deal with these issues. Then we will let go and you can be independent, and you will understand how to tweak those strategies that we suggested to adapt them to yourself, to your own needs. So this is not a new club, but it is new in the form that it took over time since we first put it in place. It focus and organize. It's a club that is early in the morning. It is there, as Miss Elliott Graves mentioned, to focus the mind and organize the student, getting them ready for learning. It took many shapes and forms, but it is informed by the students. And we saw that some of our students needed to be in the Focus and Organize club for a term or two or more, but other students just used it for over a couple of weeks. And then with that strategy in mind, they were able to go to the lessons without the support of the Focus and Organize club, because they already understood how to deal with their inability at one point to work with their sensory needs, or their inability to stay focused first thing in the morning. So with that strategy in place, the student became independent, and then they are able to access learning without the support of Focus and Organize club. Chill Club, as I said, hugely popular. This is a lunch time club that is a buffer between a very busy morning and a very busy afternoon. It provides a safe space for students to socialize, as I mentioned, and they mentioned, to be themselves, to take time and have lunch either by themselves, doing whatever they want to do. This is a very centered, child-centered approach to all the clubs we have in place, including Lego Club, which is again very popular. Students are able to come to this club for many reasons, and they tweaked that support that we have in place for them. It was socializing and making friends. It was organizing, focusing the mind, turn taking, all those skills that they needed. But again, the intervention takes the form the students dictate. Homework club, again, evolved in time from supporting homework, because some of our students were unable to finish their homework, didn't quite understand what they needed to do. And so we put that in place in the first place just for homework. In time, we added some gaps in the knowledge. So some of the students came from math, English, science lessons, and so on, and said, I didn't quite get that. I didn't quite understand what the teacher explained to me, and therefore I cannot do my homework. So we went back and asked the teachers for their knowledge organizers, use those knowledge organizers to support filling in those gaps for the students. And because we had the knowledge organizers in place, then we decided, hang on a second, we can use this to support assessments. Assessments that, as you know, take time, take place every single term. So he had that objective changed because we listened to our students. They needed support for assessments too. The EAL Club, Mr. Morocco explained, it is a way of language acquisition, a second language, a third for some of our students. It puts in place that support for the students. And now we have other clubs and interventions that the LSAs are able to put in place. Friends Resilience, it is one very important intervention, which helps the students that struggle with social interaction, social communication. And this evolved, and we are able to provide a wealth of strategies with our lovely LSAs, getting the knowledge from experts. And so that intervention now evolved, and we are able to serve a wide net of students and needs. Autism awareness, again, evolved in time. It is focused on self-advocacy, the ability to understand how autism affects students. And it can be in a multiple of ways. We have some of the parents that talk to us about the anxiety that autism creates, because students see themselves as different, see themselves and unable to do some of the things that other students do. And we try to put that autism awareness at the forefront of this intervention, to tell the student, you are no more different than we are. That difference that you see, it is not there in terms of your inability to deal with those social interaction or social communication skills. You just need the strategy in place to understand how to deal with that stress, how to put in place that strategy to help you create a group of friends, to help you communicate with others in a manner that most of them find acceptable. Precision teaching is an ever-evolving tool. The LSAs are able to employ this with students that, for example, find timetables a struggle, phonics, something that they still need to learn, vocabulary and spelling. It is another very popular way of using precision teaching. Works well with all students. More importantly, this is an intervention that takes 10 minutes. It is very little disruption to the instruction time that students get in the classroom. Therefore, we get a huge impact from an intervention that is short and individualized to the student's needs. Now, I talked about these interventions. There is a huge team behind this, and now I'm going to walk you through this team that provides the support during the intervention and clubs. Ms. Chan, Ms. Driscoll, Ms. Jones, Ms. Kaigosus, Ms. Rebecca, Mr. Tan, and Mr. Struger. It is a team that is trained on a range of issues, and is trained to support the student with all their needs. Now, I would like to explain how the support from LSAs works in school. On one level is the support that LSAs provide in lessons. Now, I have to explain that these are not all students. These are students that need an above and beyond support from us. Ms. Elliott Grave details some of the instances where this is needed. The LSAs will be in the classroom, but they take the prompt from the teachers. We know that the best teaching is done by well-trained professionals, well-trained teachers. The area of expertise for LSAs does not reside in teaching the lesson, but in providing that focus, helping and prompting the students to remain on task, developing those independent skills, and collecting evidence. This is hugely important, and we talked about educational health care assessment. Without the LSAs being in the classroom and seeing on a range of lessons how the students interact with the learning. What are the difficulties that our students face, being them numeracy literacy or social and emotional health. We will not be able to write solid documents that will not be rejected. The evidence need to be there for the local authority to understand that educational health care plan is well funded and the request needs to be fulfilled. Literacy skills are an important part of LSA's work in the classroom. We know that every single maths, science, PE lesson needs a solid fundament in literacy. Vocabulary being basic for EAL students, as Ms. Morocco explained, assessments are done so we understand if that is there, or being tier 2 vocabulary, which is the vocabulary that all students need to access all lessons. This is vitally important to all subjects. It is also a skill for the future. It remains at the forefront of what we do in lessons, developing that full vocabulary so the students first understand the input from the teachers, and secondly, for them to be able to access jobs, go and be articulate in job interviews. This is a skill for life that we treasure and we will continue to support. As I explained before, interventions vitally important for our support. These are tailor-made sessions for social communication and interaction, literacy and reading comprehension, resilience and social emotional mental health, organization and focus, and homework completion. The range of interventions that I explained are in place will change. We need to respond very promptly to the needs of a new cohort coming in September, or the ever-evolving needs of the students that are already in the academy. I would like to walk you through what we do when a child presents with special education needs and disabilities, because it can be a process that is not very well explained in the literature. But here at the academy, we know exactly how to identify a student that has SEND. First of all, we rely on parents and we treasure that exceptional relationship that we build with parents in noticing things. More often than not, the parent will come and say, my child is anxious, doesn't want to come to school. We go to the teachers and ask, what do you see? What is the evidence in the classroom? And it can be an inability to understand things, hence the vocabulary, an inability to access learning because they are tired, so prompting out to some health issues and so on. There is a wide range of needs, and is a wide range of evidence that we gather in order to decide if we need to proceed in any way, if there is a medical need at the bottom of the issue or an educational need. Indeed, if there is a care need there. This evidence given and this evidence gathered, it is discussed always because more detail is needed. As I talk daily with parents, the parent that most parents have at home is not the way the student presents in school. Things that you see at home are not in school, and the other way around. That evidence needs to be solid, and it needs to point out to what interventions and clubs we have in place, or indeed we can put in place to support that student. If that level of support doesn't work, we will go to early intervention team and ask, what more can we do? Those professionals that come to these meetings will point out into various directions and various supports that outside agencies, and indeed us in school, can put in place to support the student further. Referral to external agencies and diagnosis are the next step. If nothing we do and put in place works, if those strategies in the classroom, outside the classroom in interventions do not work, the need for a referral from to outside agency and for indeed a diagnosis, it's there. Assess, plan, do, review is the way we gather solid evidence. It's not useful just trying once. It's not useful just putting something in place. That intervention that is there needs to be looked at. Did that make a difference or not? It's that suitable. Referrals are a big part of what we do as an inclusion team. And we work closely with ACORN for ASD, ADHD assessments. We have speech and language therapy and occupational therapy referrals and CAMS referrals. These are all discussed with the early intervention team during the early intervention team meetings. Again, every single one of them needs to have solid evidence at the back. It takes time, and moreover, in the case of ASD, ADHD, it takes a long time from the moment the school sends the evidence and the referral, and until the student is assessed, and indeed even longer until the student is diagnosed. Now, if for ASD, ADHD, we have the ability of referring students for a diagnosis. In the case of dyslexia, we have a clear guidance from the local authority. As most parents know, in the case of dyslexia, there is no public supported diagnosis. Some of the parents went and did this privately. What the local authority says is, first of all, we need a specific learning difficulty visual stress test. This is designed to identify visual stress, a condition that can affect reading and learning. More often than not, our students complain of words being jumbled on a page, and that can prompt to this visual stress that occurs when the eyes and the brain have difficulty in processing visual information, leading to discomfort and difficulties with reading and writing. Indeed, it is difficult to read something that you think mixes up on your page. The visual stress test is there, but is not a dyslexia diagnosis, because and I said the diagnosis for dyslexia is available privately at this point, but as Ms. Elliott-Graves mentioned several times during this presentation, all the needs of our students, including the ones with dyslexia trait, should be met in the classroom. Those strategies for dyslexia, for students that present with dyslexia traits and indeed might have dyslexia, are met in the classroom. Quality first teaching of things that we put in place to support the students are there. I will hand you over now to Ms. Elliott-Graves for the second last part of our presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Chicolita. I just wanted to add a little bit to what Ms. Chicolita has also said. She has walked us through what support looks like in the lessons, in interventions, and how we treat the student that we've got in front of us and not the label. I just wanted to also kind of reiterate, and maybe for some parents who are new to the academy, to kind of flag that our interventions may well look different to what you are used to from other schools. Many schools will take students out of usually non-core subjects on a rotation, like taking them out of history for one half term, geography, music, Spanish, etc., to do those interventions with them. And I just wanted to bring that up, because it would be a big misconception for you to take away from that as parents and carers, that those interventions are more robust, or that those schools deem them more necessary than we'd do. We are extremely blessed as a school in that we've got an inclusive ethos running through everything that we do, and it follows on from our commitment to push and challenge all students. So, for example, most of our interventions are actually called clubs, and that is purposeful, because most students in the school would be expected to do a club at lunchtime or after school. This is the provision universally that we give to everyone. Now, some students would be benefiting from focusing their minds and applying their intelligence and growing it by doing chess club. Other students would really benefit from ping pong or table tennis club, because they've got an interest in it, because it is an additional opportunity for them to do sport, or because they need to have that physical let out during lunchtime. Our interventions that are called chill club or homework club happen at the same time, and they're just that most useful for those students at the particular time. So yes, they are called clubs, but not because they are more optional or less rigorous than an intervention that we would take students out of a history lesson to. And had we not timetabled, scheduled and planned for all students to be doing some additional thing in school, then we would have had to, and we 100% would have been taking the students out of lessons that we have invited to those clubs. It just happens to be that we are committed, at the same time as providing these interventions, we are also committed to ensuring that all students are offered a wide and varied curriculum and they access all of it. This is the same for our reading comprehension and reading skill and reading fluency interventions. So students will be doing reading for 20 minutes a day, every day in our academy, at whatever level they are at. Where the students require phonics training or fluency training, they will be doing that in that allocated time. Again, where other schools have to take them out of their lesson time to do that. And of course, students at the very top of those state lines should always be pushing themselves and growing, so they are offered and they are catered to it at the same time. So the reason why I'm stressing that so much is because, especially as this is secondary school, and we do want to engage our students and our parents and carers, our whole community, in coming along with us on this journey, we do really need your help. Where we have meetings and we discuss these interventions that we also call clubs, we absolutely rely on your conversations at home, your prompting, your decision making, and your encouragement as parents and carers to ensure that those students attend those clubs that are actually providing quality, evidence-based, fully sort of trained interventions behind. So they sound optional and they sound like that's just what any student would be doing by design, but in the background they are as necessary as we say they are in those meetings, and we would absolutely welcome your ongoing support to get those students in those right clubs for them. So there's a graduated approach to us providing students with support. There is also a graduated approach to us being informed about needs and responding, obviously, to your concerns, your questions, your inquiries as a community. So at the very first port, we would ask that you go onto the website, onto Academy Life, additional needs, and you click on the send inquiries form. That it isn't quite that yet. Apologies for that. It is our inquiries form that you just put in an inquiry, and the reason why this is so useful is because you've already sort of typed in what your general inquiry is. You will receive a response to say that we have accepted it, we've seen it, and we are looking to give you a reply. And then where you get communication from us, either from Ms. Cookson-Edwards, our administrator, or from Mr. Kalita, our SENCO, we have already done part of the thinking, part of the planning, so that you can get a response much faster than us just then having kind of follow-up questions, etc. Should this not work out for you, or should you need to follow up on your inquiry, you can email Miss Cookson-Edwards at cookson-edwards@bexleyheathacademy.org. And where the question, you know for a fact, is much more complicated than that, or is a response to something Ms. Chicolita would have emailed out, you know for a fact that it needs to be for the attention of the SENCO, or if the response that you have gotten is not unsatisfactory, either in terms of that it can't cover everything, or it hasn't come quite fast enough, within a reasonable time frame, then you would use the SENCO email and contact Ms. Chicolita directly. Obviously, we've got our senior leaders in the school, fully aware and knowledgeable of all students with special educational needs, and you should feel and have experiences that demonstrate that everyone in the school is knowledgeable when it comes to SEND, or they go ahead and answer those questions and bring you responses. Now, we talked about, and this is where the Google form that looks very much like the SEND inquiries form. What we are going to do is, right after this meeting, we are going to share via email, as we did with the link invitation to this presentation, and we'll also put it on our weekly news, which goes up every Saturday. We have a link for you to fill out a parent feedback. We picked out some feedback that we had already been working on, and that was again indicating to us what our community really values, but this was a lot kind of more narrow and a lot more based on our face-to-face interactions. What we would really appreciate as we plan for September, and indeed as you have just, if you're a year 6 parent or carer, as you're about to join our academy, is if you gave us some feedback so that we knew what you valued the most and where you feel that we could progress our support. Because as Ms. Chicolita has said quite a number of times, because it is absolutely the case, the whole point of the special educational needs and inclusion support is to really tailor it, everything, to the needs of the student. And who is a better expert when it comes to the students? Absolutely, our students themselves and their families. So thank you very, very much for your continuous support, continuous engagement in these evenings and in our discussions. I wish you a very, very good evening and look forward to all of the feedback that you are going to share with us. Wonderful. Okay, have a good evening now. Thank you.